So now, I want you to imagine a girl who leaves her home and wants to discover the world. Well, this was an imagination 10 years back, but today it must be feeling very relatable for the girls present here. Now, she comes to her dream city for her dream internship, and she's super excited to explore this new city because, well, this is her first time away from home. But on her first day to work in a cab driver makes her feel very uncomfortable because she did not know the local language. She finishes her internship and she goes back home, only realizing that the same has been happening with her even while she was back home. Now, everybody around us has always judged us. I can say by just looking at them. Hi, I am Praachi Nagpal, the reigning Miss Grand India, and I'm not here to judge you, I promise. So that girl in the story was me. I have been judged in my own city for coming here to Bangalore for the first time in my internship years based upon my surname, the languages that I spoke, the way I look, and just the way I was. But this exact need to judge people around us, this is ingrained in all of us as humans, and we just cannot help it. But why do we judge? Have you ever realized that from the moment that we all are born, there is somebody in the family ready with comments such as, oh, the baby has less hair. Oh, he or she is too chubby. But it is exactly and precisely this judgment that got me here to be present here and for all of you to find me worthy of listening to me today. When I was back home in Hyderabad, a lot of times one's surnames, one's community, and well, a lot of things plays a big role, not just in Hyderabad, but all across India, where people judged you based on who you are. And if I look at this, deciding, settling, considering, these are all synonyms of the word judging. Now, even when you go for a job interview, how many times have they asked you certain questions such as, we would still like to have some time to decide on what we want, or we would like you to consider this as a proposal instead, or can we also not settle on this rather than thinking of this? Judgment as a word and judgment as a feeling has been ingrained in all of us, and the only reason why it must have started is because many times, a lot of times rather, we all see something in the person in front of us that probably we lack in ourselves. This feeling of judgment is a reflection of who or what we want to be and what we admire in somebody in front of us. Now, I have auditioned for 7 years to become a Miss India, and every time I was at an audition, mind you, I was not being judged based upon just the marks that they were giving me, but you have precisely 2 minutes to convince them that you are the perfect person for this role. You have 30 seconds to walk, 1 minute to introduce yourself, and another 30 seconds for that one final look. Sounds similar to job interviews, entrance exams, and whatnot, right? Well, because becoming a Miss India is precisely taking up a job. You are the representative, the ambassador of your organization and your country. And you and your entire team are at an international conference representing India, hoping to get that bonus for your company. Now, going back to the thought of this reflection and this person that we see in front of us. Why is it that we aspire to be like somebody else? Why is it that we are not entirely happy being just the way we are? When we learn to embrace ourselves for who we are as people, I promise you, this process of judgment comes down just a little bit. I've had this very weird habit growing up where I tend to see the good in the world. And my brother would like to see this as I live in my own bubble. And I tell you this with so much confidence today that if it wasn't for living in my own bubble, my capacity to judge somebody from 100% to now a 30% would probably not have reduced. If I wouldn't have been embracing myself and loving myself for the way I am, I would still be that person to judge each one of you present in this room. But this idea of embracing myself, accepting myself for who I am, this is what I learned in the last 7 years every time I auditioned. And every single time that I auditioned, I learned that I was still lacking on something. If you look at the picture on your left, you see me in 2016. And you can see how young and naive and unprepared I was. But when you see the picture on your right, you see that I was coming for that crown. So over the last 7 years, if I have learned something, it is that I had to accept the fact that I am not perfect, but that is exactly what makes me perfect. Now, it might be sounding very easy for you to hear me say all of this, but if I start with how did I begin on this journey, it's with understanding that I was somebody that thought of my life as I don't want to regret anything that I do. Along with this feeling of judgment, there is one more thing all of us humans here have had in us from the moment we were born, and that is the fear of failure. You are afraid to fail your exams, your interviews. I was afraid to even step up and give my first audition. But to having an understanding that even if I fail today, I'm learning something new about myself that can help me make a better me tomorrow. So the first time I auditioned, I failed, I learned. Second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Every time I learned something new about myself because I wanted to get better, not because somebody else wanted me to, but because I realized that if I don't do this for myself, then who am I doing this for? Nobody ever asked me to become a Miss India. My parents never asked me to go beyond stage and represent the country. It was my inner feeling that got me to believe that I was worthy of becoming a Miss India. This brings me to another question that I've often been asked. Was it all worth the effort, the 7 years of failure? I say, every time we have failed, we have, of course, we've gotten saddened, we feel like the world is coming to an end and all those negative emotions. But when time plays its magic, you realize that maybe I can give it another chance. And you go back to giving yourself another chance. So all your efforts, all the power that you put in to yourself, be it whatever your dream is, I promise you it does not go to waste. You might feel that, oh my God, I'm doing so much today. Why am I not seeing the results of this happening in front of me? Well, because it takes time for things to add up and give you results. In the last 7 years, my biggest challenge as a type 1 diabetic was the fact that people believed somebody with an invisible disability cannot become a Miss India. And when you have a challenge, something that people say, you can't do this, or you were not made for this, the fire in you comes out, and you, trust me, will want to not prove them wrong, but build yourself a journey that you will be proud of. I embraced this challenge not because I wanted to prove somebody else wrong, but because I believe that why can't somebody like me with an invisible disability become not just a Miss India, but take up that responsibility of being called as India. My dream was to not be called as Praachi when I went international. My dream was to be called as India. Now, a lot of people might not know this, but before I left for my international pageant in October last year, I was sick, and 12 hours before I had to board my flight, I was in a hospital bed with 4 bottles of saline going inside me. That's me 3 hours before I had to head to the airport. But when at times like this, when you feel like the universe is conspiring against you, and you feel like this is it, everybody here has always told me you can't do it, you can't do it, and if I would have let my inner doubt, my self-doubt, convince me that you can't do it, I don't think I would be on this stage here as your speaker. It was because I had the inner resilience in me, and I let go of all those voices that kept talking to me negatively, that I landed safely in Indonesia with the Indian flag, and I took it with me wrapped on my body just the way I had imagined it since the time I was 11 years old. Now, if I were to tell you that what was the secret of doing this, I think my answer is very simple. You all must have heard of the term CSR, right? CSR? Next, please. Okay, before we go to CSR, so if I tell you this, that I didn't make it to the final 20 of my international pageant, but you see these people here, you see this crowd on stage that was really loving me. It was because it was just me being me that got them to love me, because I had learned to love myself first, and I had only over the course of 30 days shown them love, compassion, care, and resilience, that despite not winning the international title, people on stage that day still wanted pictures with me. Now let's go back to CSR. So you've all heard of CSR, corporate social responsibility. Yeah, that's exactly my key to becoming the way I became. I'll tell you how. So C is for compassion, S is for self-love, and R is for resilience. You know how the sun is the most warming and the most hopeful symbol we use when we say that we want something good in our life, because it brings so much, radiating so much of happiness around us? That is what it means to be human and in sunshine form. If you want to become your life's own sunshine, you have to start showing compassion to yourself. You can do that very easily by starting to even take yourself out on dates. I love myself so much that I love going anywhere and everywhere on my own. I came here on my own. I put up the sari on my own. That's how much you've got to start making yourself your best friend. It does not matter if you have 100 people in the room with you and you don't know them. If you can learn to be by yourself, if you can learn to be your own company, even those 100 people in the room will then want to be in your company. There is a very fine line between being alone and being lonely. Now, being alone is what I love to do, that I am in a room full of people, but I am disconnected, not with myself, but with them. When I am connected with myself, I am alone. But when I'm emotionally, mentally, physically disconnected with myself and with that group of people, that is when I am lonely. I want all of you to be okay to being lonely, to being alone and not lonely. The other thing that now comes down to is self-love. How do you show yourself self-love? It's a term that is widely used today, that all of us should have self-love. Well, I say begin with accepting your flaws. Sometimes many of us don't come to terms with the fact that I cannot be imperfect, or no, I couldn't have done this wrong. If you are hurting someone, if you have done something wrong, embrace it that yes, I was wrong. It starts with accepting the fact that I am not perfect. When you start this acceptance within you, you will start loving your imperfections, your flaws, and of course that helps you build up to the idea that I can learn to be a better person. And to learn to be a better person does not mean that you have to be kind with showing somebody the idea that, oh, I gave this person this much today, or I fed these many people today. That's not called having self-love, to feel good about yourself or showing compassion. To show all of this together, you have to start with yourself. If you don't put in your thoughts and your actions towards yourself, it's not going to take you anywhere in life. If I would have let all those people's negativity get to me, I would have probably not even gone for my second audition, forget my seventh. It was because I realized that these people here are here to only give me feedback and only help me mold myself into this person that I've seen myself becoming, that I was able to go back and give those auditions every single year. And last but not the least, have resilience. Resilient people show kindness and are confident. You have to show kindness towards yourself, and you have to be confident in the way you are. If I wouldn't have shown resilience, probably even after these 7 years when I was on that bed, I still would have given up and said that, let somebody else go. But I was resilient on myself. I was resilient on my dreams. I never gave up on the fact that this is my reason for existence. To be called as India was what was my reason of existence. This was my purpose in life, and I never gave up on it because I realized that my dreams were bigger than my fears. Like I said, I only feared regret, and I never wanted to regret the fact that I let go of my dreams. I never wanted the thought of what if to come into my mind. And I precisely why only feared the fear of failure. I didn't want to fail. So I embraced all of this, and I let my dreams be bigger than my fears. To the girl on the left and to the girl on the right, it all started with one dream, and that dream was to be a better person, along with having a crown on her head. I will be passing on this crown to somebody in the next couple of months, but I do promise you, and I want to let you know, that one thing that will go on with me is the fact that I had the CSR in my life, and I continue to do so as much as I can. Let your dreams be bigger than your fears. Thank you.